in white Western English-speaking cultures, I really do think women get this kind of treatment worse than men, and it's harder for them to deal with it. It's harder for them to deal with it either confrontationally or not confrontationally. You know, the kind of needling treatment women get, the kind of openly contemptuous and dismissive treatment women get, and the assumption that you can just keep insulting someone to their face and they're not going to stand up and walk out of the room or stand up and turn over the table. This is not about respect my authority. This is in a very real sense about respect my subjectivity.
À-bas-le-ciel.
Hey guys, it's been a couple years since I said this on the channel, but I used to say all the time that when you talk about the cultural clash surrounding egoism, I really think that in modern white Western society, women have a much harder time of it than men. And this example I'm going to read you, email sent to me by a Patreon supporter, illustrates this fact. By the way, you can click on the link below this video, pay $1 a month so that this channel can exist via Patreon. I'm not going to digress into extolling the relative virtues of doing this, but hey, it is what it is. So I got an email from Samantha. Samantha writes to me, "Hey Eisel, I would really appreciate if you would take a small amount of time to read this." Check. "I recently went out for my birthday at a Thai restaurant, so I emphasize this is her birthday dinner. It's not someone else's birthday dinner. At a Thai restaurant with my family. I ordered a simple dish of fried tofu with rice. However, it came along with egg drop soup. So the point is here, it was bundled with, for free, she got a soup that has egg in it, which she didn't know, she didn't realize it wasn't explained on the menu or what have you. So she says she was unaware of this when she ordered it, but this free soup came with her order. I offered it to my brother, and my stepmom made a comment on how, quote, I don't understand, chickens do not die to produce eggs, close quote. I'm very shy, and I just got kind of anxious about this. I didn't want to come across as judgmental or irrational, but I also wanted to tell her why this wasn't the case. This led me into an anxiety attack, and she followed me outside so I could relax. I'm aware that this was not very rational looking back on this. Several things about this are irrational, including her following you when you're having an anxiety attack. This is probably a great time for her to leave you alone, especially what happens in the rest of this story. I told her how chickens are killed for the production of eggs, i.e. male chicks being ground alive, and I really just don't think she comprehended it. She kept replying with stuff like, quote, I've had chickens before, close quote, and, quote, eggs aren't fertilized, they aren't mashed up body parts of baby chicks, close quote. I don't know if I wasn't clear about it or if she just truly didn't get what I was saying. She sort of laughed, saying, quote, one person can't make a difference, close quote, and she got defensive, saying, quote, I'm not going to give up eggs if that's what you want, close quote. That sentence really got to me, Eisel. What if Rosa Parks got this kind of attitude and then just complied, sitting in the back of the bus? What if Martin Luther King gave up on the basic idea of ending racial segregation because of this kind of flack? I'm just so tired of having to shrug off my quote-unquote lifestyle as no big deal in these kinds of contexts. So look, I'll continue reading this message, but I just point out, in white Western English-speaking cultures, I really do think women get this kind of treatment worse than men, and it's harder for them to deal with it. It's harder for them to deal with it either confrontationally or not confrontationally. So I'll give you an example. I don't know how old this person is writing in. Let's assume she's younger than I am because I'm approximately 100 years old. You can imagine, for me as a young man or for me as an old man now, it's real easy if someone says something like this, whether it's about eggs or about dairy milk. If someone says that chickens aren't killed to produce eggs, I can sit there and cross my arms or stare across the table at them like this and say, oh yeah? So they live forever, do they? So the chickens go on to a retirement home after they're done laying eggs. What do you imagine happens to the chickens who spend their whole life inside an aluminum box, eating food out of a trough and laying an egg into a slot? How does their life end? How does their life end really? I mean, you can imagine there's just a level of I'm sorry. I mean, it's in a perfect world, men and women would be treated equally, and you can even say just in the company of perfect friends. I've had a lot of female friends that I treated exactly the same as men, and some of them put up with it, and some of them don't. I'm going to be honest with you. I think that's also why so many of my female friends have either been bisexual or lesbian, because I do have female friends. I treat them exactly the same as men, and not everybody likes that kind of treatment in Western culture either. But, the kind of needling treatment women get, the kind of openly contemptuous and dismissive treatment women get, and the assumption that you can just keep insulting someone to their face and they're not going to stand up and walk out of the room or stand up and turn over the table or straight up resort to a fist fight, they're really, it's weird because, obviously, look, I'm going to keep it real with you. I'm a nihilist. I see peace as the shadow of war, and I see most good behavior and refined manners in Western countries as very much being in the shadow of the threat of violence, or at least inconvenience. You know what I mean? It may not really be the threat of violence, maybe just the threat of this meal is over, I'm walking out, dinner is ruined, this birthday is over. That there are consequences for misbehaving. And again, back when I was 16, 18 or something, I could get that kind of reaction to people where it was very clear to people without my having to demand it, either you take me seriously or there are going to be consequences. The consequence just may be I walk out and you never hear from me again. This is not about respect my authority. This is in a very real sense about respect my subjectivity. And it is in this sense in which vegans often find it a lot easier to talk about veganism as a religion. I've said in a recent Vegan Mind Tricks video, I was talking about dealing with parents who ask you to be reasonable and quote unquote compromise and just eat a few meals that are made out of meat a few times a year at family gatherings at big holidays. And I suggested there that you can challenge people by comparing to religions. Say, okay, so are you willing to be Muslim for a few days a year? If I get married to a Muslim and I convert to Islam, are you willing to change your religion? Just 3 or 4 times a year, just for my convenience, just to get along? Or are you willing to convert to Hinduism? This kind of question. This kind of parallelism, in a sense, is really inadequate because the vast majority of people are members of religion just by accident of birth, right? They just happen to be born into a Muslim family. And we're people who really chose this. We're people who are really passionate about it, really care about it. These are ethical principles that to some extent we've invented for ourselves, and to some extent we've at least selected for ourselves. So it's actually much more powerful than most forms of religious identity. But you got to fight to get it taken seriously. And as you say here, you've already put it in this perspective. Well, Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King Jr., as I've said in many other videos also, has anyone suffered less? But nevertheless, the struggle is real. The suffering is very real. And women, it's partly for this reason, as I say, the kind of the shadow of the possibility of a fist fight breaking out, or just standing up, or just men saying, look, I'm drawing the line. You can't talk to me this way. If you do, there are consequences. And the consequence may just be, I'll walk out of this restaurant now and leave you to eat your egg drop soup alone, or whatever it is. But, it's also this Western idea of the woman as the caregiver and the cook and the participant in the kitchen, where women are put upon, where it's like, oh, well, it's Thanksgiving. Why don't you get in the kitchen with your auntie and your grandma and participate in basting this turkey? And it's like, well, you're asking me to participate in something I regard as a crime. I mean, you're asking me to participate in something I regard as immoral. And that's a tension which, again, I think women are put in that position much, much more often than men, and with a real sense of scoffing, not just scoffing indifference, but contempt, if women try to draw a hard moral line. So, I mean, it's tough. I mean, women in Western culture are presumed to be the guardians of morality. They're presumed to impart morality to the next generation in raising children. But on the other hand, it is, the role of the preacher is presumed to be male. And the role of the lawyer and the role of the statesman. A lot of these have gendered concepts, built into them. The idea of standing up for justice or your sense of what's right or what have you. These do have a really gendered element to them in Western culture. And sure, I can absolutely say it's different in Sri Lanka. I can say it's different in Taiwan. I can say it's different in other cultures, in some ways better and in some ways worse. But in white Western English-speaking countries, there's no doubt women have it a lot worse than men in exactly these most intimate and awful of situations, dealing with your stepmother and your brother and this stuff around the dinner table. All right, I continue. I'm just so tired of trying to shrug off my so-called lifestyle as no big deal, even avoiding mentioning it to others. Will the small efforts vegans do make a difference? Am I crazy getting upset over a small bowl of soup? All right, stop. You're not upset over the bowl of soup. You're upset over what your stepmother is doing to you, right? And it's really good if you can articulate that at the time. The problem isn't the bowl of soup. The problem is you, Mom. That's what you got to get across. And you can say it in exactly those words. The problem is you disrespecting me. The problem is I'm drawing a line in chalk and you're crossing it and you're laughing at me and you're sneering at me. The problem isn't the bowl of soup. Every day I walk past 1,000 eggs at the grocery store. Like, you just literally walk past the display of eggs and milk to go and pick out my tofu or whatever it is I'm buying at the grocery store. I got to deal with it every day. Every day I may drive my car past hundreds of pigs and cows going to slaughterhouses. You know, you see them in these trucks on their way to the slaughterhouse, right? That's an everyday thing for me. So for me to have to sit at this table with a little bowl of soup in it, that's not the problem. The problem is I got to look in your eyes and deal with your disrespect and your phony ass incomprehension, you know, of what this is. And when you know the particular person, you can give examples. You can say, like, look, you know, my cousin Rory. You remember he got really crazy about mountain climbing, and he got, you know, he spent all this money to fly to India and climb a mountain and come back. He was, you know, going and learning how to do rock climbing and then flying around the globe. You remember that? You remember how tolerant and patient you were for figuring out what that was and why that was, and how positive and appreciative and supportive you were with that? Doesn't it seem to you like that's complete bullshit compared to what this is we're talking about here and how much it means to me? Now, again, you may not have a cousin Rory who did mountain climbing. You may have a cousin named Michael who became a compulsive gambler. You know, you may have your brother Tom who became a video game addict. You may have a sister who, you know, converted to Zen Buddhism or something. But you probably have some examples in the family where it's like, look, you took the time to understand, appreciate, and play some kind of positive role for this member of the family when they did something that really mattered to them that you had no comprehension of. And you're not making that little bit of effort here to find out what this means to me. You know, obviously you are not going to give up eating eggs. And that's because you're a piece of shit. Like, that's the underlying fucking tension here. Is that's what you're not saying, right? What is being said is that you as the vegan are being disrespected here because you care. You know, it's that schoolyard thing. It's really schoolyard, you know, nonsense where, you know, what's cool is not caring. And then the kid who actually cares about something is ridiculed because they care. Oh, gee, you care about the consequences of your actions. You care about the fact that chickens are being harmed and ground up to produce food that is unnecessary and unhealthy. You care, and therefore you're the butt of the joke. And when you're sitting down with friends or relatives, that's wrong. And it's not wrong in a profound sense. It's wrong in a shallow schoolyard sense. And if you want to be respected by your own stepmom, your own brother, your own cousins, you've got a goddamn fight. And definitely in modern Western culture, I think women have the hardest fight of all.
À-bas-le-ciel.